These are confessions of an office supply junkie. Well, good morning. This is Joe Van Cleve, and I am an office supply junkie. We haven't done one of these office supply junkie videos in a while. It's high time we did so. And what I'm going to talk about today is envelopes and letter writing and such. I am in a series of postal mail correspondences with several people, and one of those people I usually write a letter to almost every week. And I've been in the habit of typing my letters on a typewriter, of course, and I'm usually using a standard size sheet of letter size US 8.5 by 11 inch paper. And I will typically mail the letters in a standard number 10 envelope, what we call in the United States a number 10 envelope. However, I have typed my letters on the smaller letter writing paper and mail them in the smaller size, what's called 6 3/4 size envelopes also. And I was in the habit recently in the last year or so of using the pre-addressed return address little stickers that you put on the return side of the envelope. So I've been using those for a while, but my correspondence is so regular with certain people that I've also taken to printing pre-printed address labels on the Avery stickers, the little address stickers that you can just stick on an envelope. Well, all of this, I started thinking about envelopes and thinking about, gee, I wonder if I can do something like, maybe I can make my own envelopes and not only save a little money, but make it a little bit more interesting. Well, in the course of my research about envelopes and paper and all that, I went to a website called papersizes.org. Papersizes.org. And I learned an awful lot about paper sizes. Now, of course, in most of the rest of the world, you guys, for standard letter paper, you guys are using A4, right? And there is the A series, which is part of the ISO 216 standard, and it's all based on the ratio of the square root of 2, or a 1 to 1.414 ratio between the short and the long sizes of the A series papers. In America, we have a strange system. We have what's called American letter sizes, and they go from half letter, which is 5.5 by 8.5 inches. There's letter size, 8.5 by 11. Legal size is 8.5 by 14. Junior legal is 5 by 8. And then there's called ledger tabloid, which is 11 by 17. But wait, that we have still more standards in America. We have what's called the American ANSI standard, as well as the American letter standard. The American ANSI standard has A through E. A is 8.5 by 11 inches, B is 11 by 17, C is 17 by 22, D is 22 by 34, and E is 34 by 44. So we have more than one standard. Oh, but wait, we have American architectural standard paper. There's architectural A, B, C, D, E, and E1. And you might think, well, those are kind of oddball sizes of paper, but actually, if I reach off camera here, in America, you go to an art store or a craft store, an art supply store, and when you go into the section where there is tablets of art paper, you'll commonly see, for instance, this is Strathmore's newsprint, you'll commonly see 9 inches by 12 inches as a size, okay? 9 by 12. Well, where does 9 by 12 fit in all this paper sizing standards? Well, as it turns out, 9 by 12 is architectural A standard. As I said, there's A through E1. Oh, but wait, it's even more weird. Well, there's also a lot of other countries have their own indigenous paper sizes that predated the international or ISO 216 standard. There was the old British Imperial and the Imperial Uncut, two different sizes of paper where you get the foolscap size. There's Canadians have their own paper standards, the C standards. There were French and Swedish, and the Japanese or JIS has their own sizes. And as well as letter writing paper and architectural paper, there is also newsprint standard sizes of paper, postcard standards, there's poster standards, billboard sizes, and photo paper standards. So there's a whole world of paper standards internationally. I was interested though in envelopes, okay, because I'm commonly using these two sizes for letters. Well, it turns out in the US, we have a crazy envelope system where the sizes of the envelope, so there's a 6 1/4 size, which is actually 6 inches by 3.5. No, there's no 6 1/4 in that. This size envelope, the smaller size letter envelope, is called 6 3/4. But it's not 6 3/4, it's 6 1/2 by 3 5/8. Then there's a 7 3/4 monarch, a 8 5/8, a 9, and then we finally get to the number 10 envelope, which is actually 9 1/2 by 4 1/8. Okay, there's an 11, there's a 12, a 14, and a 16 size in the American commercial envelopes. But wait, there's more. Not only do we have these commercial envelope size standards in the United States, we also have what's called announcement envelope sizes. There's 9 different sizes in envelope announcement sizes, and then there's a catalog envelope sizes. There's 12 different sizes in that standard. So it's crazy, right? So I was interested in seeing if I could figure out how to make my own envelopes for my letters that I write. So naturally, the first thing I did is I took a number 10 envelope and I cut it apart to see what size it was made from. Now this particular envelope was actually already glued together and I had to cut the seams and all that, so it's not precise, but you can see that these are made from a diamond shaped piece of paper, and you can imagine that they probably manufacture these off a giant roll of paper and they fit those diamonds together in a grid, so when they cut them there's very little waste. I think the only amount of paper they're wasting is the little corners where they round things off. But when you measure this out, you find out that if I was going to make an envelope patterned after a number 10, I would have to use a really large sheet of paper, and it would end up not being very economical. So I started thinking about, I wonder if there's a way that I could make an envelope big enough for me to put a letter in, like maybe something closer to this, that I could make from a standard letter size 8 1/2 by 11 sheet of paper. And there's probably a lot of different ways of doing this, and if you go on the internet and search, you'll probably find a whole bunch of videos about different crafty ways of making your own envelopes and all that. I wasn't really interested necessarily in reproducing a specific size envelope. I'm more interested in just getting an envelope that I can make from a single sheet of letter paper that will fit a letter once it's folded down. Well, what I did is I took a standard US letter size sheet of paper. I just took an old junk piece of paper. And first of all, I figured that if I measured 3 inches down from the top and I make that my fold over, then I can fold the rest of the paper up to meet that fold. And then what I did is I figured, okay, I'm going to need some kind of flaps on the side. And so I just figured 1 inch would be a good size. So what I did is I'm folding the paper. I'll show you here a close up in a little bit. I'm basically folding it like this, and then it goes like that. And what you do is you tape the bottom flap, the two sides, and the little corners right here with tape, and you have a completely self-contained little envelope out of a sheet of paper. And it is actually slightly wider than the 6 3/4 size small letter envelope. So this is the 6 3/4 size on top. This is my homemade one on the bottom. So the homemade one is a little bit wider, and it's also taller. So it's slightly bigger than a 6 3/4 size letter envelope. And what I do is I made a template. Okay, so what I did to make this template is I started with my standard 8.5 by 11 inch sheet of letter paper, and in Word I made a template where I'm drawing a line that's 3 inches down from the top of the paper. And I'm just making a dashed line, and that's just a reference for where to fold the flap. And then I have my default margin set up to 1 inch in from the edge of the paper. So then what I did is I made a text box a little bit below the fold line and a little bit inboard of the inch mark where I put my return address. You can also, if you have a pen pal or a correspondent that you regularly correspond with, you can also set up your template with their address in here in another text box, which makes it even better. So let's start by folding it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to fold the paper on that dotted line. Okay. So there is the paper folded on the dotted line. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that inch from the edge of the paper to where the line starts, okay? I'm just going to cut that in like that, all right? Then, so this is going to be the front of my envelope where the addressing is going to be. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to fold up the bottom of the paper to meet the fold line on top and make sure your sides are straight, right? The next thing you're going to do is on the side here, you're going to just fold this in as a flap, and you want it to be straight, so you fold it in as far as your cut is. But on the other side here, you want to make sure that this is even with the bottom of the envelope. So that is even along here. Make a nice crease, turn it around, do the same thing on the other side. You fold in 1 inch where your cut is. You make sure this is even. Okay, now the flap. So what we do with the flap is I'm going to fold in the side at an angle. You see where this starts? I'm going to fold it at an angle instead of straight across, and I want this little triangle to hang down here, okay? And I'm just going to eyeball that, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to fold it down like that so it's about the same, okay? Now, when I fold this, that is going to be my envelope. Now, one more change I'm going to do is these two side flaps. I open it up and I tuck a little pocket in. This center fold, I line it up like that and I fold it over to make a little 45-degree angle. I do the same thing on this side. Open it up, push the pocket down, get the crease centered on the edge. Make your triangle and then close it up. So you make a little corner 45-degree angle, and now when you fold your envelope shut, all you're going to do is put a piece of tape here, 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 and 2 little ones here and here, and that completely seals the envelope shut. And now you can address it, stamp it, and put it in the postal box. Let's talk for a minute about the corners of the flap on a standard envelope. This is a number 10 envelope. Now, if you notice on a lot of these, the glue on the envelope ends about 1 inch or so before you get to the corner of the envelope. And what that means is when you lick the envelope shut, you're going to have a little opening in here. And it's possible, and this has been done, there's a special tool. It's a thin little strip of metal that has a split in it like a little fork. They slip it inside the letter through that gap. They snag your letter and they roll the letter up on the little metal thing and pull it out, and your letter can be read. Now, letters can also be steamed open, you know, the adhesive softened. There's no easy way to guarantee privacy in mail, even though it's better than email. But one of the things I do like about my homemade envelope design is these 2 little triangles, because first of all, the letter goes in here in the pocket behind it. But you have these 2 little triangles that when you close and tape the flap down, you don't have an opening in the corner for someone to gain access to the letter as easily. And if you're using good quality adhesive tape, when you tape the envelope shut, there's no way that somebody can easily open the envelope without tearing the paper when they try taking the tape off. So there's kind of a little telltale that helps you to ensure that maybe your letter is a little bit more secure than it might be otherwise with a standard type of envelope. So when you finish folding your envelope, putting your letter in it, you tape it up like this, and it's all taped up. There's no gaps. You can throw it in the mail, and there you go, an envelope. Now you might ask yourself, why would you want to do this? It's a lot of trouble. Well, obviously one reason why you might want to do it is if you're just a hands-on kind of crafty person and you want to have a fun project to do. But there is actually some cost savings involved in this. Now I went on to, just as a comparison, I went on to the Staples, which Staples is a big, what we call a big box retailer of office supply stuff here in the United States. I went on their website and I just compared the cost of paper. So I looked at cheap copy paper, and I looked at a whole case of it, which is 5,000 sheets. There's 10 reams. Each ream has 500 sheets of paper. And in this case, for the Staples brand, which is like the cheapest paper, they wanted $15 for 5,000 sheets, which works out to about 0.3 of a cent per sheet of paper. So since you can get one homemade envelope per sheet of paper, that's 0.3 of a cent, 0.3 cents per envelope. Now, if you compare that with what Staples house brand of envelopes cost, they cost $30 for 500 envelopes, which is 6 cents per envelope for the cheap envelopes. So this is the cost of the homemade envelope is about 1/18 the cost of using a commercially manufactured envelope. Now, of course, that was using the price of a whole case of paper. If you go down to a single ream of paper, 500 sheets, it comes into $1.36 cents, just about a penny and a half per sheet of paper versus 6 cents for a commercially made envelope. So there is quite a bit of savings of money by making your own envelopes. Now I'm not factoring in there the cost of the adhesive tape, which is going to be marginal, or the cost of laser printing. If you want to do a laser printed address, you can always handwrite it or type it or whatever. But so that's my little homemade letter envelope project. So I have a second little thing I want to talk about. It's not big enough to make my own video on, but so this is going to be a little bonus topic. A couple of decades ago, I would say back in the 1980s, I had accumulated some art supplies into a little art box. It had like calligraphy pen nibs and colored pencils and charcoal pencils and art gum erasers and just things like that. Dip pen ink and all that. One of the little items that I had in my art case was called an Olfa Touch-Knife. And I lost it years ago, hadn't seen him in years, and then recently, I think late last year, late 2016, I started thinking, oh, I remember Olfa Touch-Knives. So I went on the internet, as always, and guess what? I bought a whole bag of Olfa Touch-Knives. Hey, let's talk about Olfa Touch-Knives. So what are they? Well, they're little Japanese-made plastic, cool little knife. It has a little hole for a keychain or whatever. And there's a little sliding knob. So I can get this to focus. There's a sliding knob, and you slide the knob up, and there is a very sharp razor-type blade. Now it's spring-loaded, so you can simply push it open and cut an envelope, cut a box. These things are strong enough that you can actually cut, packing boxes, packing tape, and you can open boxes with it. The other thing about the Olfa Touch-Knife is if you slide the handle a little bit further, like that, it'll lock in place. The blade will lock, so you can keep it open and you can use it to cut with. The other thing that's cool about it, it has a really smooth bottom edge to it, and you can use that when you're using the blade by hand. You can use it to run along a surface or even along the edge of a straight edge for cutting really straight lines. So I used to use different kinds of knives. I know there's a whole knife thing that's been going on for years. You know, these whole tactical knives got real popular. If you remember tactical knives, right? People figured out all kinds of ways to use knives in their lives, and knives got really inexpensive, Asian-made knives. I was, a few years ago, I was given what is officially a letter opener, okay? Yeah, this is a letter opener, supposedly. It is actually supposedly stainless steel. It's made in Italy. And it is a letter opener that will, let's see if I can figure out how to close it. Oh yeah, it's a letter opener. And yeah, I think we call these switchblades. Now this technically isn't sharpened. The blade is dull like a letter opener blade. And I usually leave it in the deployed position because the springs are in the more relaxed position. You can, when you cock it, there's a lock on it, a sliding lock that supposedly keeps it from opening in your pocket and turning you from a rooster to a hen. I don't know if that would actually work, but yeah, it does keep it from, but I generally keep it as a letter opener in my letter area. But you know what? These Olfa Touch-Knives are a lot better, right? You can open envelopes, you can open boxes, and the nice thing about them is you buy them. I'm not going to leave the link, but you can go to Amazon or whatever and search for them. A number of sellers are selling these individually, and they're kind of expensive, but if you buy them by, how many is in here? 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, maybe a dozen of these, plus shipping. Actually, Amazon Prime shipping's free, but it's only $1 or $2 per knife. But there's a white, blue, red, yellow, a nice assortment of Olfa Touch knives. They'll last for years. They fit in your pocket really easily. They don't take up much room. I don't know if they're TSA approved for flying on airlines in the United States. I probably wouldn't take one on, but it's very cool. Olfa Touch knives. So that's the little bonus topic I have for today. Go get yourself some Olfa Touch knives. These are really cool little knives for using around the office. Well, that's it for today. I am Joe Van Cleve, and I am an office supply junkie. You have yourself a great day.